Good to have you with us tonight, folks. You know, we may have entered a new stage in the Occupy Wall Street movement. This was the scene last night in Oakland, California. Is this America? You better believe it is. We are witnessing 30 years of failed Republican economic policies all coming to a head. Now, just 2 months after the movement began, patience is wearing thin. It was a violent night on the streets of Oakland. Police and protesters facing off for 6 hours. Over 1,000 protesters, over 100 arrested. Authorities say the decision to move some of the protesters from a makeshift camp at a local park was based on public health and safety. But Oakland police felt the need to eventually use tear gas.
We were in a position where we had to deploy gas in order to stop the crowd and people from pelting us with bottles and rocks.
Flash grenades and rubber bullets were also reportedly used to control the crowd by other police agencies. 2 police officers were injured. The number of injured protesters is not yet known.
What happened? You got hit. Shot. What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? Wake up. What's your name? What's your name?
His name is Scott Olson. He's a 24-year-old originally from Wisconsin. He served 2 tours of duty in Iraq. He's a veteran. And tonight he is in critical condition with a fractured skull in an Oakland hospital. At this hour, Oakland police are bracing for the possibility of more violence. The protesters are vowing to return. Meanwhile, over 50 were arrested in protests in Atlanta, Georgia, including State Senator Vincent Fort, who will join us in just a moment. Our affiliate, WXIA, was on the scene.
Tensions between city leaders and Occupy protesters have been rising for days.
This is getting ready to come to a conclusion.
Occupy Atlanta's voice is the voice of people who have no job. If you want to be arrested, this is the spot we want to make it circle.
Now dozens waking up in jail, but vowing to continue their fight.
Can we be arrested again?
We'll see. The occupation will continue in one form or another.
After a night of protests on both coasts, today, Republicans are accusing President Obama of sowing the seeds of discontent.
Instead of appealing to the hope and optimism that were the hallmarks to his first campaign, he has launched his second campaign by preying on the emotions of fear, envy, and resentment.
I have been to several of these protests. There is anger and resentment at the policies that have left over 25 million Americans unemployed in this country. President Obama has a real jobs plan on the table, trying to get something done, something that we have not seen from the Republicans. The obstruction in Washington at a time of national economic crisis has sent people into the streets. Now what? These people aren't in the streets because they hate America. They are in the streets because they love this country. They want to realize the chance at the American dream. Let's see. Jobs are scarce. Wages are stagnant. 50 million people in this country have no health insurance. Student loan debt is now at $1 trillion. That beats the credit card number. Then there's the foreclosure crisis that continues. Republicans don't want to do anything about that either. By the way, public education is under attack. Did I tell you that small businesses just can't seem to get loans and credit's tight? And, of course, there's this thing called, I think it's called a super committee. They're out there now, and they want to slash Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Congress is at a 9% approval rating. And you want to know why people are in the streets in this country? There is your answer. But here's the next question. Who is going to be the first Republican to stand up and say, maybe we better work with this president. Maybe the country has had too much obstruction. Maybe all of these filibusters have just taken a ride on the people of the American people, on the point of the American people, where they are in the streets for maybe our actions. Maybe we got to do something. Maybe government does have to get involved in some form, some way, some fashion. Because the discontent isn't going to go away tonight. It's not going to go away tomorrow. And Congress's approval rating isn't going to shoot through the roof anytime soon. 9%. Boehner, Cantor, show some leadership. President Obama has put olive branches outside the window of the White House time and time again. He's laid your proposals on the table and you've said no. Show some movement. That will change these protests in this country. But now, these protests are going into an entirely new phase. Who the hell knows where they're going now? I want to know what you think. Tonight's question. Has the 99% movement reached a turning point? Text A for yes, text B for no to 622-639. We love your comments on our blog at ed.msnbc.com. We'll bring you the results later on in the show. Joining me as promised is Georgia State Senator Vincent Fort. Senator, good to have you with us tonight. You were arrested, and I want to ask, did you do something to get arrested?
Yes, I did. I sat down and with the 99%ers and peacefully protested, and I was handcuffed and put in jail and got out just a few hours ago.
How did you feel about that?
I was not happy about it. I think it's unfortunate that Mayor Kasim Reed, did what he did. This was a very peaceful situation. It was, I think, the safest place in Atlanta, and for the mayor to send in dozens of police, hundreds of police rather, horses, helicopters, was overkill. And in the hometown of Dr. King and the civil rights movement, for the mayor to do that, I think, was the wrong thing to do. He should have joined us and not fought against us. But I think he's done us a favor. I think he's energized this movement, and I think it's going to pick up even more steam. The Occupy Atlanta movement is here to stay.
Well, I was going to ask you, and I think you answered some of that question. Where does it go from here? Is this going to subside in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think so. I think the Occupy Atlanta movement, although it's very nonviolent, is angrier than ever and more committed than ever to bring a change to Atlanta. Atlanta, in particular, and Georgia in general, has suffered through the top 5 in the country in joblessness and foreclosures. Homelessness is rampant around the state capitol, around City Hall. So I think the mayor may have done us a favor by doing what he did last night and arresting us. I think it's energized and already energized movement.
Senator Fort, what's your response when you hear Congressman Paul Ryan suggesting that the President of the United States is the guy who is preying on fear and resentment? What do you say to that?
I think that's nonsense. There is class warfare going on in this country. It's been going on for a long time, but I think it's a war on working people. What happened in Wisconsin, what's happening in Ohio is just one instance of it. And now you have a movement that's pushing back against the Republican and the right wing's assault on wages and bargaining rights. So I agree with him to that extent. There is a war, class warfare going on, but I don't think Barack Obama had anything to do with it. I think the Republicans did a good enough job of fighting or committing war on working people.
And you will go back and protest again, I hear?
I will go back as often as necessary to make sure that the public and the community at large understands that corporate greed is what has put us in this mess. Okay. Corporate greed by the big banks have devastated many neighborhoods in my district and around Atlanta. Bank of America, Wells Fargo have done their subprime lending in these neighborhoods. Now they're foreclosing on the American dream for a lot of my constituents. For that reason, I'm going to be with the Occupy Atlanta movement as long as it takes to change some things in Atlanta and in this country.
Georgia State Senator Vincent Fort, you're a brave man. I appreciate you coming on the program tonight. Thanks so much. We will reconnect with you again because, as you say, this isn't going away. Now let's turn to Laura Flanders, host of Free Speech TV, and Justin Elliott, reporter for Salon.com. Oakland, California had a lot of violence last night. The mayor of Oakland has just made a statement, and I want to go to this videotape. Here it is.
It's a tough time for America. We're trying to find the right thing to do. I'm going to try to be working with the community groups. We're going to try to work with the demonstrators. They have very unusual organizations, very flat. They're generally anti-government, but this is something that we hope that we can make progress on.
Laura Flanders, what do you make of that?
First off, it is appalling, the brutality that was used against these young people and the people of Occupy Wall Street in Oakland last night. Appalling.
Oh, are we into a new phase now?
But it is not a new phase of the protest, and that's the one thing I'd correct you on, Ed. It is a new phase of policing. Tensions were not rising among the protesters. I was there a week ago, organized, a very structured situation where people were doing their own policing and dealing with some very basic needs that have been left abandoned by our public servants in this time of public austerity. The policing tactics that were used last night, again, we need to understand the crowd was as riled up as it was because of the tactics that had been used to shut down the encampment earlier that day. The protest was to protest the shutdown of the camp. And again, let's think of the irony of public servants, supposedly the police, using the argument of public safety to shut down a public forum that is drawing attention to the very real threats to the public safety posed by the consolidation of wealth and power in very few hands in this country.
Justin, what do we know about that Iraq War veteran that was injured last night and is in critical condition?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the latest is he's still in the hospital. People still seem to be unclear about what sort of projectile he was hit by. I believe the Oakland Police Department is claiming that it was not one of their projectiles, but I don't see how, I mean, unless a protester had a tear gas gun, I don't see how it could have been anything else. I mean, witnesses on the scene say it was some sort of police projectile, whether a tear gas canister or a flashbang grenade or something else. But I mean, I think that display last night woke up a lot of people to, you know, the militarization of police departments in this country, which I think is a trend that's been going on for a couple decades.
So where does it go from here?
Well, I mean, look, I think the protesters in Oakland are planning on going out, I believe, about an hour from right now. And I think the police tactics are going to be protested. But I think it would be a mistake for the protesters to make this about the police in the long term. I mean, I think the question is, how do you use the attention that this police overreaction and apparent, you know, show of violence, how do you use that to get back to the core message that got everyone out there, which is economic injustice?
And Laura, in the meantime, the Republicans are out there, you know, depicting this crowd as malcontents, anarchists, revolutionaries.
I mean, on the one hand, Justin's absolutely right. This shouldn't become a distraction, the fight over the right to the park. At the same time, it illustrates exactly some of the issues that the Occupy movement is raising about what is the place of the public in a corporate-run state. And yet, you know, you ask where it goes next, this is way beyond the park. And at the very same time as this was happening yesterday on the West Coast, here in New York, you had over 100 educators and advocates and teachers and students taking over a Board of Ed meeting to raise issues about austerity in education. Today there were marches going to the heart of the healthcare private insurance system coming from Occupy Wall Street to their headquarters. And right now, you're absolutely right. All across the country are planned demonstrations 9 p.m. Eastern in solidarity with what happened in Oakland. So this is way beyond the park in terms of physical issues, and it's way beyond the frustration that the president's talking about. It's about empowerment. If you haven't seen the 8-year-old who talked yesterday at the Board of Ed meeting, you've got to watch it. The People's Mic gave her an ability to speak that Mayor Mike has more or less shut down. It's an amazing thing that's happening out there, way beyond this discussion of policing.
It's not going away. It's not going away anytime soon until there's change. You know, we've seen this happen in this country back in the 60s, the civil rights. There is a parallel. The passions were very high. You know, dogs and hoses were turned on Americans who were marching that just wanted to vote, that wanted equality. And there's inequality in income in this country right now, and people are frustrated for all the things that I had listed in the commentary tonight. And the fact of the matter is, when you have elected officials saying that, yeah, I'm going to go back and get arrested, I'm going to keep going back, that crowd's only going to grow.
Yeah.
That is only going to grow. Laura Flanders, Justin Elliott, thanks for your time tonight. I appreciate it so much.